Hello and welcome back to CW Live. Quick couple of things before we get into this week's show. First, thank you all so much for tuning in last week. It was a first look at our new studio, our first proper live show. There was a lot going on, we admit that. And secondly, the show is undergoing a bit of a change. We're going to have segments to it instead. It's going to be a magazine-style show, so we can add a lot more value to what you're watching. It will still regularly feature a main guest, but also so much more. We should also note that this is another postal-focused episode. Next week, we will sit down with our Deputy General Secretary-elect for Telecoms and Financial Services members, Karen Rose. But moving forward, we're going to try and have a little bit of everything in each show for all of our members out there. It will take us about a week or two to get into the flow of it all, so please bear with us, but we hope you enjoy the new format nonetheless. And with that, it's time for our first news segment. That's right, it's the industry news. It's time to go over the latest happenings that matter to you across the postal, comms and tech industries. First up, we have news that Emma Gilthorpe will be the new Royal Mail CEO. She'll be joining after a long stretch working at Heathrow and taking her place alongside Martin Seidenberg. Now, we've got our head of comms here, Chris Webb. Chris, she's been touted by the press as someone who gets the importance of Royal Mail. She said that it's a great British brand that needs to get back on its feet. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think postal workers, and you saw that from the reaction to the appointment online particularly, will be saying we've heard a lot of that before. They'll also be scarred, from the previous few multiple CEOs who have come in saying similar things and have failed to deliver in terms of, for them in the workplace, for the relationship with the union, for the stability of the company. So people will be doubting those words. But what I think the union will be doing, led by, obviously Dave Ward, Martin Walsh, will be, being really open-minded, will be really willing to work with the new Royal Mail CEO alongside the group CEO, Martin Seidenberg, and will be putting everything into, hoping this can be different.
Yeah, and hopefully it will be. We'll see in due time.
We will.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Also in the news is that Openreach has agreed to invest £100 million in better developing its ultra-fast full fibre network across Northern Ireland. It's supposed to better connect around 100,000 homes and workplaces, especially in some of the more rural parts of the 6 counties. Now, Chris, this is something that our Deputy General Secretary-elect, Karen Rose, has been pushing for, right? Better connectivity for all.
Yeah, if you are here in London like we are, you see people moaning if they can't get 5G and they're a bit upset about that, aren't they? But you go out to areas, I was doing a members meeting a couple of weeks ago in Cornwall, and you're lucky to be getting 3G down there. And our members in Northern Ireland will know what that feels like, so it's brilliant to see Openreach investing, because when Openreach invest in infrastructure, they're actually investing in the infrastructure of the company. I'm sure, people like Andy Kerr, Karen Rose, are making sure that's happening. And I'm sure they're also reminding the company that it's also investment in staff and in our members that we need to see at the same time as in equipment and in the infrastructure as well.
Exactly. So we can see a bit of a boost there as well. We can expect that.
I would hope so, because I think that, the company of that scale and over so long now, the union's done so well with pay and reward in the companies in the telecommunications industry. And I'm sure that we'll be making sure that, BT, Openreach and all those employers understand that there's a value to matching that investment when it comes to frontline staff.
Cool. Appreciate that. Now, some of you may have read this in The Guardian, an article by Gareth Roberts titled, "Working for the Royal Mail sounded like an ideal job, but I discovered it's falling apart just like its vans." This piece was about his recent experiences working as a postie in West Sussex, detailing things that many of our members will already know, which includes his workplace looking like a natural disaster ran through it. He also goes into depth about how overstretched people are, the high levels of stress that they feel because of things like PDAs, which sometimes seems to be the only up-to-date tech in the workplace. Chris, this must put a lot of strain on both posties, but also union reps as well, right? Because this piece was absolutely scathing.
Yeah, I think it was scathing, but what you saw from our members, Omar, was that it hit a nerve in the sense of truth. So what we saw from that article in terms of on our pages was people going, he speaks for me in that moment. I would say a note to The Guardian, just as an aside, by the way, we have tried several times to make our case via an opinion piece from Dave or frontline postal workers or Martin Walsh, and they haven't even had the courtesy to respond to us. So it is nice to see The Guardian finally coming in and giving a piece on Royal Mail. But that's not the main point here. The main point here is that article highlights the absolute chaos that thousands of our members are walking into. So, if we as a union or as a company and employer, Royal Mail are asking their staff to think about investing their time and thought in a new USO and ideas for that, then they need to fix the problems that are staring our members in the face, and our members are impacted by every single day of the week before we get into that, because people won't trust anyone in Royal Mail when they're talking about the future if they can't fix what they've done in the past and what's currently happening every single day.
And so do you think this article then can help better highlight the things that our posties and our members are going through to the wider public out there then?
I think so, but let's be honest about it. The Royal Mail previous CEO, was humiliated twice in the select committee. There was a panorama programme just a few weeks ago, and the issues seem to just be carrying on. So, I don't think, this article in isolation can do that, but what should do it is a willingness to protect and save the company. Now, we've got a new Royal Mail CEO come in, Martin Seidenberg above her as the group CEO is showing more of a willingness to work with the union. The relationships and meetings with Dave Ward and Martin Walsh are going well, but we need to see more. It's no good, Dave's the measure of the postal worker and how they feel about the relationship with the union and the employer and what that's happened in their workplace won't be measured on how well the union's general secretary and the Royal Mail CEO get on. It'll be measured on what they see, feel and know has happening every single day in their workplace. So a lot of work to do for Royal Mail.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Lastly, you may already know that yesterday former sub-postmaster Alan Bates slammed the post office as an atrocious organisation that is beyond saving. Here's a quick clip of him.
And the reason I say that is quite simple. They don't think there's any worth to any of the work that I've done over the years. They're an atrocious organisation. They need disbanding, it needs removing, it needs building up again.
Disbanding, removing. Chris, what are your thoughts on what Alan has said and his views on it all?
I think first, I know Dave, Martin and Andy Fury have said this, you've got to pay tremendous credit to Alan Bates. What a phenomenal campaigner who hasn't given up, who's kept fighting, and on behalf of so many people has started to see and deliver some sort of justice for those people. So well done to Alan for that. I think you can say that at the same time as saying some of his analysis for the future is wrong. So Alan has been quoted himself as saying just give it to Amazon, for example. Let me tell you now, the answer to a crisis and mistreatment of working people is not to give what is a part of the national infrastructure and national history to a company like Amazon. With an ownership that is anti-union, with a terrible employment rights track record. That's not the answer. The answer for the post office is quite clear: to be reunited with Royal Mail, with both in public ownership. That's the answer, is to actually give the post office truly back to the people and give everyone a say in it. It's been publicly owned, and obviously the government have made a right shambles of that, but it needs to be reintegrated with Royal Mail if it's to be successful. Like most postal operators right across the world have their postal and post office arms integrated, and both need to be back in public ownership, and that is the campaigning aim for the union. Obviously, there's a realism. We currently have a Tory government. We're also probably got an incoming Labour government who are being a bit vague on their commitments for the future of Royal Mail, but the unification of the two, we're not going to give up until hopefully that becomes a reality.
Do you feel that Alan Bates, what he says or some of his views or how the future of Royal Mail should go, does it reflect some of the membership, or do you think it's just born out of a lot of frustration with everything that's been going on?
I think if you can imagine what Alan Bates has been through and what other postmasters and postmistresses have been through, some of them in prisons, some of them taking their own life, some of them passing away while seeking justice, you can totally understand the contribution he made in that clip we saw there, and in other clips where he's called for Amazon to be, handed the Royal Mail. I think it was sell it to Amazon for £1 or something was his quote. You can totally understand where that's coming from, because those people have been put through hell. They've had themselves questioned. They've had communities turn on them. They've been labelled as thieves. So you can, understanding that emotion is very easy to do. But, the conclusion that, you passed over the British Post Office to the likes of Jeff Bezos is just completely the wrong conclusion. So, but you completely understand that when people have been hurt for so long, they're going to want to hurt back, and we get that.
Yeah, we'll see. Thank you for that. Next up, before anything else, we'd just like to talk about last week's show. As you may know, CW Live went well, live. It was a last-minute decision to turn last week's show, which was going to be normal, into a live show instead, with Dave Ward and Martin Walsh to talk about the USO updates. And even though it was short notice, so many of you watched it and commented throughout. But we recognise that, firstly, it was done at a time when many out there may have been on shift or unavailable, given how quickly we announced it. So apologies for that. We'll be having more live shows in the future and announcing them way ahead of time, so keep an eye out for that. And given the quick turnaround, our first time doing this live for the studio, and with so much to say, we weren't able to really get anyone on from the audience, be it down the line or have their comments read out. Now, this show is for you, the members. It's here so you can all get your industry and union news in one place. It's here so you can engage with our guests and ask them questions you want to ask. And most importantly, it's here because you're here. It's about accountability, honesty, transparency, and we're doing our best to give those to you. We don't have all the answers and we're still getting the show properly off the ground, so please bear with us. But we want to get to a place where you, the members, have a voice, where you all feel heard. And we have been reading what you've been writing in, and do you know what? We acknowledge it all. And we will try as hard as we can to get the answers for you over the coming weeks. We truly want this show to belong to the members. We're going to have executive members on the show today, and we're going to be putting some of your comments from last show to them as well. But please, whether it's a live show or pre-recorded like this one, comment any questions or thoughts you have down below. We'll try our best to get them on. We're well on our way to achieving something special here with CWU Live, and it won't be possible without all of you. Now next is the union business. Now, what is going on in the CWU itself? We'll be going over what's happening in union business. We are now less than 2 weeks away from the annual conference in Bournemouth. 5 full days of debates on workplace issues, CWU restructuring, politics and more. Your branch will be represented at the conference, and many of them will have submitted motions to be debated and voted on by everyone in the hall. We will be bringing you all the best highlights from the conference, but have a chat with your branch for the local priorities. And if you like the sound of really getting involved, then think about becoming a representative and applying to attend future conferences. This is your union at the end of the day, and your input is always mighty helpful and appreciated. It's about time now to bring in our guests for the Q&A. As mentioned earlier, we have some brilliant members of the Postal Executive. Martin and Dave came on last week to explain the latest with the USO, but we had so many people in the comments giving their take on it as the show went on. So we selected several comments and put them to senior officials. Let's see what they had to say. First up, we'll be hearing from John Orris, who said that the union will always be selective in answering your questions. There it is on screen for you to see. Now, Chris, you actually had a chat with John on the phone, didn't you? How did that go?
John was a great guy, first of all, and it was a member who immediately, Joe didn't just ring him up and say what's going on. He actually called into, alongside his comment, called into us at headquarters and said, I'll come on the show and I'll ask you questions of the union's leadership. So, fantastic. So I spoke to John yesterday or the day before. We had a really nice chat. He was out on delivery, he was busy, but he has agreed to come in. He's going to be sat in your seat, my seat, one of these seats in the coming weeks. We're going to have hopefully a couple of colleagues with him, and he's going to be putting questions to the members, to the officers, sorry. John, I found, was like so indicative of CDW members I meet who, even when you see a comment and there's like, you think, oh, that's a bit harsh, or, that's a bit firm. When you speak to someone, it comes from a place of caring about the union as well as caring about their colleagues. So what I would say is, if there's ever of you out there and you want to come on and join John in a couple of weeks, please put your name in the comments. Let us know what office you work at. We're looking to get a real balance from different companies, different areas of the UK, but we would love to have a couple of you on in that show with John and really make a member special where we bring you on to question the union's leadership. And what I think is brilliant about that, Omar, is that that's the union. Like, we get people who say, Omar's selecting the questions, Chris is selecting the questions. Well, that isn't true. But let's go one step further. You come in and you ask the questions, so you know that's not true. So really excited to see John. Thank you, mate. You were fantastic, and you restored a load of faith in me in terms of the tone and the way we had that conversation. So thank you to you. And anyone else, Omar, fancies coming on and kicking you out of your job, mate. Let's
Yep.
get him in for a week.
I'll get out of this chair.
Yeah.
Appreciate that, Chris. And John, can't wait for you to come and sit in this chair. It's really comfy. I do like it a lot, so I do enjoy. And as Chris said, if you fancy joining John, let us know in the comments. And, who knows? Maybe we can get you one in the future. We do want that. We want more than just engagement in the comments. We want you to be a real part of the show as well. Next, CWU member Mark Allen makes several points the union won't be listened to. We will just nod through what Royal Mail wants, and we rolled over during the strikes. Wow, there is a lot to break down there. We'll leave it up there for a minute just for you guys to read that too. Let's hear from Postal Executive member Tony Bush on that.
Look, my own view is that that's not true. I don't think we can sit here and say that we gave Royal Mail everything they wanted. I accept that the agreement was unpopular for some members, but clearly we moved the business on every single position. May not have been enough for some members. I accept that, and I think the union accepts that. But we definitely moved the business on every single issue around that. Now, in terms of where we've just roll over and accept anything that Royal Mail wants on the USO, that couldn't be further from the truth. We're currently involved in discussions with the employer around what is their position around the USO change they put forward, so the speed of delivery. Clearly, they've put a submission into Ofcom, which will be important in those negotiations. But likewise, the CWU has also submitted a consultation document to Ofcom on the questions that they pose, but also on the union's position relating to the USO going forwards. And in any change relating to the USO, the CWU is going to be in a position where we are going to be wanting pay for 2025. That's, it's 12 months away. We are going to want to be looking at improved attendance patterns, more Saturdays off, improving the work-life balance for our members. We are going to be looking for anything under the USO changes to try and increase the shorter working week. Obviously, less indoor time. Obviously, there's only so much our members can do out on the street, so we will be looking to do that. We will be looking to use it as an opportunity to improve and eradicate the new entrance terms and conditions that we didn't agree to, but the company imposed. Likewise, we want to see any change to the USO around growth opportunities. So we want to see the company grow. We don't want to see, this change, that the company wants to bring in around speed of delivery. We want to see longevity. We want to see that the company is going to be successful going forwards. And that change has to bring in about growth and opportunities and new products and services, etc., etc. So that whilst the company's going to want to, they're going to have their own list of issues, the CWU will absolutely not roll over. And obviously, when we get to conference, which is less than 2 weeks now, that we will be engaging with our branches, our representatives and our members that are in attendance at conference in terms of a presentation on the USO and the changes going forward. So absolutely, we're on the start of the journey in terms of discussions relating to the USO, but that will be the union's negotiating position.
Thanks, Tony. Cheers for that clarification. Next up, Tic Tac made it clear with some colourful language as well that we need to be making sure the current USO is abided by and that the union was out of touch with the frontline workforce. Let's see what Postal Executive member Luke Elgar had to say about that.
Well, I think first of all, look, we're doing a massive project at the moment, reconnecting with the workplace, getting out to as many units as possible. Any unit that requests a visit, then a national officer or PE member, divisional rep, and making sure they're getting to there, and we'll keep that up and make sure we're listening and understanding the views in the workplace. So in terms of the question, I think the reality is we need to separate the two questions, but also recognise that they're interlinked. So we can't allow Royal Mail to wait a year now to fix problems in case Ofcom say yes to their proposals or whatever Ofcom propose they're going to do. We need to make sure they're fixing them now. But the reality is we need to look at, if Ofcom are looking at this and it's clear they seriously are, Royal Mail believe they need to change to keep moving forward or to survive in the future. And we need to be, if we're going to be part of looking at that, then we need to make sure that we're in the room and protecting jobs, understanding how we do that in the best way that protects job security, attendance patterns, gives people more flexibility, and most of all, make sure that the job is achievable and doable for our people day in, day out.
Thanks to Luke for that response. Stephen Morton was strongly of the view that any downgrading of the current USO was unacceptable. We put that to Postal Executive member Shelley Banbury.
Well, to the member and any of the members of the CW, changing the USO is essential to maintaining the future of Royal Mail, maintaining the future jobs that all of us enjoy today. If we stay out of the room, we don't get involved in that discussion, then the business, the government, Ofcom will all make a decision on what that future is. And they'll come from an angle of money, efficiency and reducing our service. By our involvement being in that room, by influencing that change and making sure your voices are heard, we should be able to hold and keep the business sustainable for the future. So in my view, unfortunately to that member, I genuinely do believe the CW need to be in that room, or the decision making will be taken out of our hands.
Thank you very much for that, Shelley. Our final member's comment came from CWU member Stephen Basu. He wants frontline reps in the national talks as, in his words, they know what's going on at local level. We asked Steve Hallowell for their thoughts on this.
So obviously a local rep will know what's going on their shop floor. Without a doubt, they know what's best, which is why national agreements allow them to have them conversations. However, the USO is such a big debate. It affects all functions, all workplaces. What works for one site is not going to be the same for another site. It could have a bigger impact, more job losses, or more impact on different start and finishing times, etc. So we've got to make sure that we'll get a national outcome which is beneficial for all our members, that looks after everyone, but then also allows for local reps to deal with the impact of that, which is of benefit to their members and their office. So we will involve them. We've got a conference that's coming up. We're going to do a presentation for local reps, branches and area reps and the likes, take everybody's input to actually make that outcome as palatable as possible, and then we'll take it from there. So they will be involved. It's going to be take time, and it's got to be in the right process.
Thanks very much for that. So there you have it. Nothing ignored or swept under the carpet. Your union is doing what no other union in the UK does. Live sessions, members Q&As, and even bringing CWU members in here in a few weeks to ask the questions live and directly. And that about does it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in to CWU Live. As always, we really appreciate you being here and supporting us. For the next show, we have our Deputy General Secretary, TFS-elect, Karen Rose, back in the studio with us. So if there's a question you'd like answered by her, something or someone you'd like to see on the show in the future, or perhaps wanted to share your thoughts on things so far, comment down below. We'll see you again next week. Until then, stick with the union.